Greetings again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of OSI Today, the podcast featuring news and views from around the Office of Special Investigations. I'm Wayne Amon from OSI Public Affairs. OSI has targeted fraud offenses since its inception as a federal law enforcement agency nearly 75 years ago. And today that mission continues as part of the OSI Center's Law Enforcement Division. And joining me to discuss the fraud mission is Special Agent Jacob Tudor, Deputy Associate Director, Fraud and Corruption Branch, and Ms. Kathy Lachey, Lead Intelligence Analyst in the Fraud and Corruption Branch. Folks, welcome aboard. Great to have you both with us.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thanks, Wayne.
Jacob, I'd like to start with you, if I may, for the benefit of our listeners not familiar with OSI as a command. Could you kind of briefly bring them and everyone else, including myself, up to speed as to how detecting fraud and corruption first came about for the command from an historical perspective?
Well, first off, thanks for having us on, Wayne. It's actually a pretty interesting story. That fraud was instrumental to the creation of OSI. During World War II, Major General Bennett Myers, a member of the U.S. Army Air Forces, steered wartime contracts to a commercial business that he was actually a shadow owner of. The general's conduct was found to be illegal, and he was convicted of a felony. So, of course, the aerospace industry was growing very fast during World War II. In part, as a result of General Myers' action, the decision was made to create an unbiased, impartial investigative agency. And so OSI was created in 1948, just a year after the Department of the Air Force was created.
Right. Now, continuing with that historical bent then, Jacob, those first 75 years, or I guess up until now, fraud and corruption has been a staple as far as the OSI targeting, bad guys, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. The OSI Fraud and Corruption Branch is part of the Law Enforcement Division at the OSI Center. Our overall mandate is to detect and deter economic crimes impacting the Department of the Air Force today, which of course now includes the U.S. Space Force.
Sure.
The Fraud and Corruption Branch is focused on assisting the OSI field by providing expert advice and guidance to help agents investigate fraud. We obtain this information mostly by networking with federal and state agencies, as well as the commercial sector, to find current fraud schemes, vulnerabilities, and also best practices. We take this information and distribute that to the field, and which enables our OSI agents across the globe so they can better detect and investigate fraud at their respective bases.
Right.
For example, the Fraud and Corruption Branch played a major role in synchronizing the investigative efforts of military housing fraud that's been plaguing the DoD over the past few years. And most recently, we're doing the same to help combat COVID relief fraud within the Department of the Air Force. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we understand fraud's complex, and we aim to alleviate any apprehension or confusion the agents have when investigating fraud matters.
From what you just said, Jacob, it sounds like the folks, under your auspices that go out and detect fraud and wherever that may be, it's kind of an evolving situation, as you mentioned, with COVID over the last couple of years, and with Space Force coming on board under the Department of the Air Force. It seems like your mission has a big challenge as far as adapting and overcoming to certain environmental situations.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We adjust fire as needed. It's interesting that the schemes they stay pretty constant and similar. Of course, technologies change, and we adjust to that.
I see. Now, due to the multiple areas of responsibility within your law enforcement division, how specifically is the fraud and corruption branch structured? Is it a very complicated type of a structure, or is it more, kind of a logical way that it's formulated?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that it's a functional structure that we have. And since I've been in the seat, I'm absolutely fascinated with the work that our experts do. We have 4 action officers whose primary responsibility is fielding fraud tips and other types of complaints from various sources.
Mhm.
They assess the information, refer it out to the appropriate OSI office for their action. And those action officers are also critical to report important information up to the senior leaders of OSI for their evaluation and decision making. So we also have the OSI Fraud Investigations Operations Consultant,
Mhm.
or Fraud IOC or IOC,
Right.
who is essentially our boots on the ground expert to assist the field directly. So if a detachment's looking for assistance, direct assistance at their base, he'll travel out to them and assist them in any way that he can.
Uh-huh.
And he walks those agents through the best routes to go in their cases and assisting the agents to find the needed resources.
I see. It sounds like it's a total team effort in that regard. Is that a pretty fair assessment?
Oh, absolutely. We have a couple other elements that are really important to highlight. Another agent we have on the team is vital to helping the field protect the Department of Air Force and the supply chain by tracking potentially counterfeit and fraudulent parts.
Uh-huh.
This agent is also responsible to monitor financial transactions that are indicative of fraud, as well as handling multi-agency case deconfliction. So agents aren't inadvertently investigating the same matters. And then finally, we have a team of 5 fraud intelligence analysts led by Ms. Kathy Lachey with us here today. And she's available to discuss the analytical role.
Right. Okay, very good. Thanks a lot for that, Jacob. Nice little education there. Kathy, we're going to segue to you now and switching gears to your particular area of expertise. What is the role intelligence analysts like yourself play when supporting field agents during, let's say, a fraud investigation?
Sure. Well, our goal as analysts is really to assist in investigations using, a vast array of tools that the field may not have access to. The work of the analysts help to understand and break down complexities in an investigation, also to identify patterns, trends, even identify things that we don't know. And what we try to do is help paint a picture or tell a story with our products.
I see. And I would imagine there's constant contact between the intelligence analysts, who I believe are not special agents. Is that correct?
Yes.
You're your own grouping of folks as opposed to the SAs out in the field. But it seems like over the years that's been a very good marriage, if you will, of those two particular skill sets.
Absolutely. The 132 program just continues to evolve and grow within OSI, and I'm really pleased to be a part of that.
Now, when you say the 132 program, again, for our novice listeners, is that kind of a designation for
Oh, yes. Yes.
intelligence
Yes.
analysts within the command?
Yes. That is
Okay.
our, yes, our, thank you. Our intelligence analyst specialist code. Yes.
No problem. Yeah, it wouldn't be a military organization without some kind of acronym or number or something like
You're so
that.
right.
Now,
Absolutely.
try to stay with layman's terms now, Kathy. What types of support do fraud analysts provide as far as specifics? Without divulging any tips of the trade. What are some of the generic things that you work very closely with the special agents in the field with?
Sure. Well, basically it's tactical and strategic support assistance that we provide. Tactical might be anything from company profiles. We might look at investigative packages, which essentially are workups, maybe on a subject of interest. We would do a lot of visualization requests to produce maybe link charts, timelines, financial analysis also, which covers a breakdown of accounts, transactions, even a pattern of life analysis. Strategically, we do a lot of specialized reporting, whether that be on a topic of interest or a particular fraud scheme or trend. And now, as we are continuing to grow our team, we're able to do a lot of proactive work. Proactively, we're providing regular team newsletters, information graphics on a topic of interest. And we're able to publish something regularly the first of every month on our team's SharePoint site.
I see. So I would imagine that internal communications with the field is an integral part of the success story between agents and the analysts.
Absolutely. A lot of what we produce is coming from agents requesting that those types of topics be written up on or visualized in some capacity.
I see. Now, Kathy, understanding that every case under investigation is different, why is it important that special agents request assistance from analysts from your perspective?
Oh, Wayne, I'm really glad that you asked that. Requesting analytical support really helps that case agent see things from a different lens. The products and the tools an analyst can use helps paint that picture of the complexity of the fraud scheme.
Hmm.
An agent might be able to look at one of our products and identify new investigative leads to pursue, or they might look at information gaps, which are still needing to be collected in the case. The importance of having an analyst early on in the case will help establish that rapport and credibility early on. We can also help drive that investigation from an analytical standpoint, maybe instead of coming in at a tail end of a case to provide that support.
I see. Is it to be really simplistic as far as myself as a layman concerning the job that you do? Is it kind of like analysts would peel back layers of that onion a little bit to dive, do kind of a deep dive or get into the weeds a little bit more for the agents in the field?
Absolutely. Yes, and that's why it's so important to have that that credibility and that rapport with that agent early on in the investigation so that we can peel back those layers.
I see. Now, Kathy, without compromising any investigative details, what types of cases are being worked on right now?
Sure. Our team is assisting on several COVID-19 related fraud cases. So
Mhm.
we're doing a lot of financial analysis, link analysis to not only visualize the financial accounts in question, but also to, from our timelines, determine when the criminal activity began.
I see. And I would imagine this is pretty much an ongoing process. I mean, it seems like uh, there's never a lack of fraud within the world, and so it's almost like having, like a barber, no lack of heads to cut the hair on. I mean, there's so many fraud cases out there. I guess that it's certainly keeping you folks gainfully employed, no doubt about that.
Oh, absolutely. Jacob and I were just talking about that yesterday about following the money in all of our cases. So
Uh-huh. I see. A kind of an offshoot question to that, Kathy. Do you work very closely with civilian law enforcement organizations when it comes to fraud? Because I would imagine that fraud obviously isn't relegated to stuff happening within the military itself.
absolutely, definitely. Our local law enforcement, federal law enforcement, and even our private sector are crucial to helping us work on all of our investigations. We have a very diverse background of analysts on our team and where they've come from, and myself where I've been. So it just helps to have that diversity and continue to collaborate with all of our partners.
I see. Very well said. Now, Jacob, I'd like to switch back to you, if I may. I understand that there's a forward-thinking initiative called the Fraud Focus Plan. What exactly is the FFP and the intent of this particular effort?
Yeah, Wayne, thanks so much for asking me about that. We talked earlier about the fraud cases that played a major part of the decision to create OSI. And as I mentioned, since then, the fraud schemes are still similar in nature,
Hmm.
but the technology has certainly changed. Well, we're doing our best that we can to leverage that technology and enable the field. Our team uses this growth in technology to produce what we call the Fraud Focus Plan,
Hmm.
FFP for short.
Right.
Uh, it is a document that provides a deep dive assessment of the fraud environment at a particular military installation by providing fraud awareness indicators and resources.
Hmm.
We gather this information from public sources off the web and Department of Defense investigative activities. And the overall goal of this product is to provide information to assist fraud detection and increase the fraud awareness and the continuity of the fraud mission at local OSI detachments because agents come in and out and transfer at times. So
Right.
this document kind of helps maintain that continuity.
I see. Now, I think you brought a very important point up as far as the FFP or fraud focus plan. Is it tailored specifically to each detachment in the field, or is there kind of like a one size fits all for the command?
Right. Yeah, that's the fascinating part of this is, what I found over the years is so much of the information now can be found online concerning what's going on at a particular basis. So
Mhm.
we tailor that with Kathy's office and analytical support to to focus in exactly what's going on at that base, what the major projects are, what the major contracts are.
Right.
and look at that in a systematic way to help the investigators take away and some of the apprehension with maybe having to take the time to get to know everyone, but already having an idea of the major players before just as soon as they get on the ground there and start investigating at that base.
I see. Now, I would assume that you mentioned that you've been in the seat now for how long, Jacob?
So I've been in the seat here at the Fraud and Corruption Branch just for 1 year now,
Uh-huh.
but several years of fraud experience.
I see. So again, you must have seen many fraud cases, obviously. And has your perspective changed at all from being out in the field to the current seat that you have now in the OSI Center?
So real quick, I'll talk about the fraud focus plan.
Yeah.
At my time on the field, when I get to a base, essentially I would do what the fraud focus plan is looking at.
Right.
So if we could do that from the fraud and corruption branch for all detachments and kind of just take that process and mimic what I would do at each location that I went to, it was a really good initiative and direction. And I think that's what we're aiming to do, is kind of give them that overall awareness right off the bat.
I see. Okay, very well said. Now, folks, before we wrap it up here, is there anything else that either of you would like to add? Because this is obviously a very fascinating subject and a very important subject that has been a staple of the folks at OSI for these many decades.
Yeah, I would just like to say it's really been a pleasure being able to join you and talk about our fraud mission. The team is very passionate about what they do. It's interesting in fraud because we often know who may have committed a crime, but we have to figure out how they did it and how they went about doing it. Whereas criminal cases, traditional criminal cases, they are more focused on finding out who committed the crime. So we really can't do that. I mean, we have ways of finding that out, but it's most helpful when people report fraud matters to us. And we'd like to encourage people to report suspected fraud to us by going to the OSI webpage at www.osi.af.mil. And there's an OSI tip line link at the bottom of the page where they can report matters of fraud that they think may be occurring.
Yeah, and obviously, the more input you have, the better equipped that you folks are to do your thing as well. Kathy, is there something you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
Jacob actually said everything that I that I wanted to say. So no, I couldn't have said it better. Jacob did a great job.
Okay, well, very good to both of you. Our guests have been Special Agent Jacob Tudor, Deputy Associate Director, Fraud and Corruption Branch in the OSI Center, and Ms. Kathy Lachey, Lead Intelligence Analyst, Fraud and Corruption Branch in the OSI Center. Folks, thank you both again for taking the time to join us. It's always great to talk to you both.
Thanks, Wayne. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank all of you listening for tuning in. For OSI Today, I'm Wayne Amon saying so long for now.